Friends, it's time again for our monthly check-in on Disneyland Forward construction progress. Now, I'll be the first to admit, we're still in speculation phase, but there is something that I thought about that I've heard nobody else talk about. And on today's video, we're gonna take a different perspective because everybody's been thinking about this topic from the outside in. But it dawned on me, what will this project look like from the inside out? So today we're gonna go on one of those design quests that I absolutely love, and it's the whole reason why I do this channel and this series, because there's a mystery and I have to solve it, and I am excited to get to the bottom of it. We also have two topics that I want to tackle that have to do with California Adventure, but the main one that I've been obsessed with is a Disneyland and Tomorrowland topic. But you know where every good Disneyland Forward video starts? Out of the parking lot. Let's get out of the park so we can start this quest. Then we'll work our way into the park where we'll kind of ponder how will this actually change things from inside Disneyland. But before we can ponder the interior of Disneyland, we have to go to the exterior and look at the different pieces of this puzzle so we could just maybe find one or two items to latch onto that will be our points of reference. Sound good? All right, let's head to the parking lots. And before we get into today's adventure, how about you do me and you a favor? Subscribe to the channel so we can keep going on these adventures together, where every month I break down Disneyland Forward as well as 4 other zones inside of the park. I've divided it all up into 5 different areas. Each week I tackle a different one and talk about its future and its constructions. So the best way to go on this adventure with me is to join me by subscribing to the channel. Okay, let's go to our starting point where this little theory kicks off. Oh, I'm so excited. So Disneyland is moving their loading and unloading operation to the other side of this intersection. So essentially all these people that are walking on the other side of me that you can't see will be up in the air because they will have done all their loading, all their checking in over here. As behind these hotels, Disney is planning on building a parking garage that I can guess phase 1 is about the size of the Pixar Pals, or maybe somewhere between Pixar Pals and Mickey and Friends. It seemed like originally they were gonna do one mega structure. It looks like they've scaled that down and they'll just do it piecemeal, one part of the structure at a time, kind of the exact same way they did Mickey and Friends. Then later they added on Pixar Pals. So on the other side of Harbor, we can indeed see the Matterhorn, which if you can see from the outside, what can you see from the inside? That's where all this is going, because this area right here has everything to do with the future and where my mind's at on this month's update. All right, hear me out. If right where I'm standing is that bridge that people will load in over here, the ground level will be where the buses drop people off. It'll be where all of the transportation is. You'll park your car here. You'll go up to the top of the garage, I'm assuming, or maybe a middle deck, and then you will walk across a sky bridge that will take you right over here on the other side of Harbor Boulevard. Right over in here will be where that sky bridge goes. And obviously it has to go over the top, which isn't running today because it's Halloween, and Halloween means that it's 91 degrees in Anaheim. But here's where my question comes in. If that bridge has to go over the top of the monorail and has to have plenty of clearance, can we see this bridge from inside of Disneyland as it stands today? Or will they have to add in some sort of temporary sightlines, and then when Tomorrowland eventually gets reconstructed, will that all be done with this sky bridge in mind? And who knows, will the sky bridge at some time have a fork where you could go right into Tomorrowland? Probably not. But I wanted to step right here where the future will one day take off above in the sky. I wanted to see what landmarks could we spot from the exterior of the park. I also have a little plan to where maybe we can understand what our height will be, and then we're gonna go in the park and look at it from the other direction. Maybe a fool's errand, but this is the type of stuff I love and why I got into doing this channel, because it gives me a way to justify my bizarre design brain that's always like, oh, never thought about that. Gotta go look at it, gotta go investigate. Okay, so hard for you guys to see, but I can see with my eyes. You can see the top spire of Star Tours. You can see that top. Also in the concept artwork, you can see that the designers did show that top spire. So that's another point that we can see. So we're basically diagonal behind Star Tours, and then the building over here, hold on, Space Mountain's this way. I'm lost. The closest building to me is the Primeval Whirl show building. I can see Matterhorn this direction, Space Mountain is over here. So that kind of core center part of Tomorrowland is what we're talking about. So do we think one of the floors of the Camelot would be higher than that monorail bridge? Let's try to find out. Now I know the neighboring hotel definitely goes above that height, but it's also a little bit further off the overpass path. Camelot is the closest, tallest building next to that gap. It's also a motel, so it makes it a little bit easier to walk out in the hallway. To get on one of those balconies, I'd have to have a room. And yo, I love doing this, but I ain't buying a room just to do that. So let's go up to the top and see if we can get a little bit of a different vantage point. And just so you know, this right here, this is where that parking garage is gonna go. One floor way too low. We're maybe at monorail height. We gotta keep climbing to the top. Now, 2 stories up, this feels like we're probably, like, if we walked across the road, we'd bump into the monorail. Sorry about the loud air conditioner. Here's that access point, and this is where everybody will go. All right. We got one more floor. Okay, I am on their 4th floor, which is actually 3 stories up. There's the monorail track. Granted, I'm far from it, but we feel pretty parallel. Like if I could just fly like Peter Pan from here to there, I feel like I'd probably fly into the side of the monorail if it was passing. What is this guy doing? Is he stealing my topic? Is he out there right now figuring out how high you have to go to get over the monorail? Competition's getting fierce. You know what they say. It's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll. All right, we are on the 5th floor. This is as high as it goes. Here is your parking garage view. Once again, there's the gap. Here's the parking garage. Footprint. And there's our Matterhorn and monorail tracks and the competition. I bet he's bringing in more views. Okay, so the height that we're at is top of the rocket. I can see top of Buzz Lightyear. That's the golden spire there. I can see top of Big Thunder Mountain. Obviously Matterhorn of a 2 spire. But where this gets really interesting, if we are above the roof lines and we're at the same height as the top of a lot of the icons, and this wall has that huge sound barrier on the north side of it, I think it's going to leak. I think it's going to be visual spill into Disneyland. Whoa, let's go. All right, a little bit closer, you can see the top of Sleeping Beauty Castle. You can see the top of the Astro Orbiter. Like the top of every theme park icon is spilling into our view. Let's get up closer to see if we can manage if we're too high over the monorail or at the appropriate height. Well, friends, I just made a new friend, and let me tell you, the benefits are amazing. I just met somebody who works high up at the Camelot. Very, very nice guy. Had a conversation with him, explained to him who I am, what I do, and you know, he just came up to me and technically, like, it could have gone sideways if I was rude, But I just let him know, like, hey man, love Disneyland, cover the parks, I do this series, kind of explain things to him. And then I was lucky enough to get to go up to the roof. And from the roof, we can see this plan has probably been going for such a long time. Because as we look over towards the bus drop-off area, you can see there's just a massive opening there that I've looked at from Google Maps several times. But being able to see it IRL from the top of the Camelot, it's so obvious. It's so obvious that this was always going to happen. And then again, when we look at the space between the Camelot and the Tropicana, you can see how much room there is to bring people in and out of this parking garage. This gave me a complete new perspective, even a new perspective on what we're talking about today, as far as seeing all of the icons, seeing the monorail path. It looks pretty clear to me. I can't say for sure, but once we get into the park, we now have a better frame of reference due to our friends at the Camelot for hooking us up with unbelievable vantage points today. Thank you so much. And I have to say, when I was hanging out with them, I got a tour of a couple of rooms. Dude, half the price of the Disneyland Hotel, and literally rooms that are probably more accommodating. And you're closer to the parks. That's the crazy thing. All right, let's head back in after that wild adventure. Now that we have some icons inside of Tomorrowland, let's try to see it from the inside, which was kind of the challenge of this whole puzzle. Dude, that was wild. My man at the Camelot was just so cool. That took up more time than what I had budgeted for it. That's all right, because with those views, I kind of have a whole new impression of the broad strokes of this project. But I'm so stoked. But now we really have an idea of those entry points. Oh, this is open over here. Let's go. And look who's back now that the sun has calmed down. Nice. All right, could there be spillage in this area right here? I don't know. If it wraps around on this backside, it could possibly leak to there. All right, let's go into Tomorrowland proper and look at those icons. Yeah, because we could see the top of that angled roof. Right, that's Space Mountain. And this will wrap around the backside. Okay, so it looks like, from the best that I can tell, that I'm completely parallel with that open gap. Let's go up here to get a different look. So we were looking at the back of those buildings, which are designed to look like more Main Street USA, but that's actually the side facade of Star Tours building. And then over here, we can see Space Mountain. But I think that bridge will be about right in here. Okay, I'm looking at the map more, and I'm thinking that that bridge runs right where the parade exit is, almost dead parallel to the outer edge of the Opera House. Now, don't let Space Mountain fool you. It's so big, it's actually kind of twisted around a little bit. But the Primeval Whirl building is back in this area. It's super crowded down here. But I'm going to try to film that gap so we can better imagine if we'll be able to see it and what Disney can do to patch that hole. All right, let's get back down there. So right in there is where that spot's at. Let's see what kind of vantage point we can get. Yeah, you're going to be able to see that thing because it's going to definitely be taller than that tree. And with that back sound wall, that thing twisting around there, the only way you don't see it is if they bend it back here. But even still then, that's going to be a pretty big height. And there's really not much you can do unless you wanted to build a second back row of like taller buildings that exist, as if Main Street USA goes on to infinity. Just imagine, like, there's another road behind Main Street that those buildings are 3 and 4 and 5 stories tall, making it look like it goes on to infinity. This is wild. I mean, I never even realized you could see the backstage building, but that's probably a 2 or 3 story building. And due to the render, it would, at this angle, be above that roof line. So fascinating. Outside of the market house, they were able to cover a little bit of Space Mountain just with a tree, just because of the distance of Space Mountain. Something that's 20 feet, it's 30 feet here, can cover up something that's 60 feet back to that distance. Right outside of the market house is where I'm at for this pickup here. All right, so over at the Plaza Inn, there is another gap there that is that same building that we could see when we were down at the wide berth of Main Street USA. So my vibe right now is thinking, yeah, we'll possibly be able to see it. It won't be like crazy obstructive or anything too nuts, but I do have a vibe that it's going to leak into the park. So something that's probably taller than this, directly back in this direction. I'm loving this. This is my kind of stuff. This this is my e-ticket attraction. So this is the building that we saw from the Main Street train station from a different angle, right? This is that building right there. So what we're talking about would be taller and back in this direction. We're also able to spot this spire and the twin spire across the way. But this valley that we're in is way too narrow. You'd never be able to see out because you're pushed so close to the edge that you can't see what's out. That's that trick of like pushing the park closer to the guests, therefore a smaller building blocks something much higher. I'm just fascinated that what I was envisioning to be a Tomorrowland problem is actually going to be a Main Street USA problem. This is why I love doing this. Look at the smile on my face. This is peak Disneyland for me, because you only get to figure these things out once. It's like I'm riding a ride for the first time right now. So this is what's weird about the way that Tomorrowland's laid out. When we were down at Main Street USA at the end, we were straight across from that walkway. We are way north of it right now. We are way, way north of it. So the original area that I thought would be a part of it is like far away, because McDonald's is more in this direction, and the hotel is on the other side of McDonald's. Very, very backside of Space Mountain, you can see some of those emergency staircases that we could witness from the other side of the Camelot. So that will all exist back in there. So in the current layout of Tomorrowland, the one area where there would be some leakage, it's so tight, there's no way you could ever see over the man-made valley and look over the ridge. I'm filming this during the first night of Halloween. The park is slammed full of people. Do you think anybody else is thinking about this, or this is what they're doing with their evening? Main Street is just like over in Tomorrowland. It's a very tight valley. Something would have to be incredibly tall to be able to be seen over the edge of said valley. So it's safe. But the front end of it, that could have something different. So wild. Not that I think it's going to be the biggest obstruction, but I'm always fascinated about what could mess with Disneyland's near perfect sightlines. I mean, other than Space Mountain leaking in, Main Street USA is dead perfect. So I was curious, would anything be able to mess that up? Even just a glimpse, like just seeing a little something different, because I mean, this is going to be a tall thing, and it's going to require some of that famous Disneyland problem solving to make sure that it works with everything else, that it doesn't interfere, and I'm all here for it. Looking at crowd sizes, daylight, and the time that I have, we're going to have to hold on to our California Adventure Mysteries for next month. Disneyland Forward construction. Right now we're just kind of on the outlook of these projects, kind of trying to figure them all out, doing the math out loud, which is kind of my favorite part of design. So thank you so much for showing up. I hope you had fun on this quest. This was a fun adventure for me. I hope it was for you, and I appreciate you coming on this journey with me. And I also want to give a big shout out to the Camelot for letting me film from the roof. That was fantastic. I will be using that footage for a long time to come. Really, really nice folks that helped me out big time today. So thank you so much to the Camelot. The rooms looked amazing. The staff was super nice. It looks like a great place to stay, and you're closer than the Disneyland Hotel when you stay there. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you here next week when we do our breakdown of the construction of the Disneyland Resort hotels. There's 5 Sundays in this month. That means we get to squeeze in a hotel zone for this month. I'll see you then. Thank you so much for showing up. Check out Downtown Disney's update right here where we talk about the disappearing of the ticket booths. Thank you for showing up. I appreciate you.